and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton, and today we're going to talk about the city's Economic Development Authority, what the heck they are, who they are, and what they do. My guest is the chairman of that board, Eleanor Brown. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, I'm trying not to use acronyms, so I'm going to say it out a few more times, but the Economic Development Authority is one of those very important but very quiet boards. Very efficient. Y'all don't meet a lot. You're not on TV, but important things are actually happening right now.
Well, we're very excited about a lot of things that are going on. We meet monthly.
And it's open to the public.
It's open to the public.
And the meetings are online if you want to come.
Yes, and we welcome input from all. Mm-hmm. Transparency is very important, of course. And we're very excited about the work that we're doing.
So what work are you doing? What does the board do?
Well, the name tells you a little bit about it. So it is the Economic Development Authority. And you may know, Robin, that it used to be the Industrial Development Authority. And in that role, the authority was a little bit more limited in its scope to maybe just issuing bonds for large projects and thinking more about maybe infrastructure and that sort of thing. Planning,
and in those old
office
days,
parks.
they did Copeland Industrial Park, and you know they did a lot that was industrial because that was the kind of development that was happening.
That's right. And there was a shift prior to my involvement to broadening that effort to greater economic development. And so the name changed to Economic Development. And so what we are doing now is seeking to enhance economic vibrancy in Hampton in all kinds of ways. And it's very, very exciting because it's land use, it's jobs, it's how we allocate really very limited resources. And so it's very exciting because we have an opportunity as citizens. It's a volunteer board. We're appointed by the City Council. So as citizens, we have an opportunity to give input as to how we will create more economic vibrancy in our city.
Okay, so as a citizen, what is your background? What brings you to have a voice on this board?
Well, I've been very privileged to serve now for 2 years. I'm a lawyer by training, and I'm a tax lawyer. I do mostly trust and estates and estate tax planning and that sort of thing. I'm very interested in using fiscal instruments to achieve certain results, and so that's what my whole career has been for over 30 years.
That's a perfect fit,
So that has been good to have that background. I'm a Hamptonian. I'm a product of Hampton City Schools. I've lived here. My father was in the Air Force, and so we came to Hampton in 1965. But I was blessed to have my grandparents living in Hampton. Both my parents are natives of Hampton, so although I lived the life of an Air Force child, I also had my extended family around me in Hampton growing up. And it just created a real love of the place. The geography, all the amenities, the water, the beaches, sailing, fishing, crabbing, all the fun things that come with living in Hampton. And it's just made me, I think, very aware of how blessed we are to have our beautiful city. And that made me want to be involved. And so I was first on the Housing Authority for 7 years, serving as chair. And when I termed out of that, I was privileged to be named onto the Economic Development Authority.
Well, let's talk about the Housing Authority just for a second, because every chance I get, I try to correct. People have an impression that the Housing Authority only does low-income housing.
No, not at all, not at all. It's the Hampton Redevelopment and Housing Authority. So a lot of what the Housing Authority does is working with redevelopment in Hampton, and it's specifically focused on housing, of course, the Housing Authority. But redevelopment is a large prong of what the Housing Authority does. It also runs the federal programs that we are privileged to have to assist those in need in our community.
And ensures that those in need do have safe, decent, affordable housing.
It's really critical.
And a lot of those are working people. People don't understand
most definitely. And a lot of times, I think people have the misunderstanding when they see blighted housing in our community, they often think that it's housing owned by the Redevelopment Housing Authority. And of course it is not, because there are strict rules as to how properties that are owned by the Housing Authority will be maintained. There are inspectors and so forth. So I like to strike that from the misunderstanding, and so I'm glad you raised it. There's a lot of really good work going on in the Housing Authority. And the Economic Development Authority is also interested in economic vibrancy, and housing is a prong in that. So we work in concert with the Housing Authority on issues that relate to housing. And so sometimes a residential opportunity might become before the Economic Development Authority, and sometimes we can partner together to make big projects happen.
And that is interesting because, there's limited land, and the
Yes.
trend is going to be a little more density,
Yes.
and a lot of those are going to be mixed-use buildings. And
They
so
are.
when you've got retail on the ground floor and apartments above, boy, anybody could develop that.
That's
it
right.
could be Economic Development Authority, it could be the Housing Authority.
Yes,
And
or together.
you want to make sure, right, that everyone's goals are being served there. And ultimately, the goals of City Council.
Well, right, and that's what I was going to share about that, is that what's exciting is we have the opportunity to understand what the market is looking for, and we do think that Hampton has a unique opportunity because of our urban landscape. We're a first city. We're a fully developed city. We really don't have lots of raw land still available to develop. And so it's important to us to redevelop our existing urban areas, all of our little villages, in ways that enhance both working and living and playing, I guess all three, in Hampton.
And there's a lot of criticism of City Council for acquiring properties. And generally speaking, to buy a property that is being used,
Right.
you pay the value for that use
That's
in
right.
addition to the land it's sitting on. Then you tear it down, and immediately the land is worth less.
Yes.
And some people see that as a bad thing. Why is it not a bad thing?
Well, in every situation we have to evaluate that, and we
Right,
do
right.
really analyze the numbers and what the return will be to the citizens when we decide to go in and redevelop a property. The reason why it's critical for the city to acquire land in those kinds of situations is because it's part of a bigger plan. And for us to control the land use and make sure that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the ideas that the citizens have given input about going forward in the development of Hampton, we want to acquire the land so we can control the land use. And what's important about that is once we've made that investment in getting that land back under our control, then it's going to be redeveloped in a way that will create more economic vibrancy.
Right.
And not only just in that particular spot, but also leveraging that particular acquisition with what else it can do for the neighborhood where it is. And so we always evaluate all those factors when deciding how to use limited resources.
And that's what I try to tell people. We are not out as a city to make a profit on a land
Oh,
deal.
no.
Quite frankly, if that were going to happen, we'd let the private sector
Exactly,
do it. That's where their
exactly.
investment comes in.
Right.
We do it to control what goes there, because
Yes.
if the private sector did, it wouldn't necessarily reflect what our citizens and our city leadership want to see there. It
That's
wouldn't
right.
necessarily be jobs, or it might not be the quality of housing that we're looking for.
That's right. And part of it too is adding to the infrastructure in our city.
Right.
So when we control property, then we can kind of control how we will enhance the infrastructure in our city. We know that when we redevelop areas and add additional infrastructure, that helps others want to invest in the surrounding area. And so that's a part of it. It's a really exciting thing to see new buildings and new opportunities for jobs and for fun going up around Hampton.
But, and I know this is a special of interest of yours, so I'm going to prod you a little bit. It's also fun to see old buildings get a new life.
Yes. I am very excited about the Armory project, for example. The Armory is a distinct building in our community. It has an interesting history. And I think that it was important for us to save it. So much of how we feel about ourselves reflects our identity, where we're from, where we live. And so much of America today is so ubiquitous. You don't know where you are in what city. When you're in Hampton, Virginia, we want you to know you're in Hampton, Virginia. And that sense of place, I think place making is very important in economic vibrancy. And so having historic buildings helps us know that we're in Hampton, Virginia. And the Armory is going to be a wonderful redeveloped use. It's going to be fun for lots of people, and it's going to bring jobs and economic vibrancy to downtown and save that beautiful building. We've lost a lot of historic buildings in Hampton.
We have,
and given
due
our
to fires,
yes,
due to wars,
yes,
due to redevelopment.
yes,
I mean,
yes, we have. And given our unique history as the first city, we really have a lot of interesting story to tell. We just celebrated the anniversary of Langley Air Base as the first air base in America, right here in Hampton, Virginia. We have so many firsts and such a unique story to tell. This is a unique place.
Yes.
And so that kind of place making, that story is told through the buildings we can preserve. And it creates economic vibrancy too. It's a hip, fun, cool thing.
Now, and I also want to say economic vibrancy means jobs and commerce. It also means tax revenue.
Yes.
Because it's a
Most
little,
definitely.
people may not understand that when you bring jobs into the city, that isn't revenue that the city gets. They get
No.
taxed by the state as income.
That's right.
But you need transactions. We get some sales tax, we get some meals and restaurants taxes,
That's
we
right.
get property tax.
That's right.
So, to offset the burden on our homeowners, people may think, oh, you're giving that developer incentive because, they're buddies, or
Right.
there's this whole good old boy viewpoint. No.
No, that's not what's going on. We're looking for opportunities to grow our tax base. We don't want the burden of all of the revenue in the city to be on homeowners. So we want to broaden that tax base. And that, say for the Army, for example, you'll have real estate taxes and you will have the meals taxes. And just the overflow of people wanting to be in the area, that will enhance real estate values all the way around.
Well, I look at that, and I look at the restaurant venture that was just announced that you guys just approved for the old, I know it as the old Watkins Feed Store, Watkins Supply, but
Yeah.
apparently it was original W.T. Patrick's building, and that is a little off downtown, just like the Armory is. And
Yes.
so there isn't much public investment except for whatever, incentives, and that we sold the land effectively for $1.
Right.
But when you have that going 2 blocks from downtown, it's going to spur everything around it.
That's
and
right.
a lot of that will be private investment.
That's right. And we're very excited that we've had the Watkins Feed Store. It was an unsolicited proposal. That's some folks in our community who want to invest in our community. And they believe in Hampton, and they believe in these old buildings and the fun and the vibrancy that they can create there. And so that's telling us that where we are is special, and we
Yeah.
want to create that. And branching out in downtown in that way just creates that kind of vibe in
Right.
those neighborhoods that will help them grow.
And when you look, I just want to talk about that because I think there's a lot of people think you help the big developers who come in from outside. Sean Pape and Gary McIntyre bought this crummy little sandwich shop on Kickotan on Sunset
Right.
Creek and became the Barking Dog over time. They have drawn press from all around Virginia in the tourism and online reviews, and people come to Hampton to go to the Barking Dog.
It's a destination.
And he
Robin.
calls it just a hot dog shop. I know it's not because I've seen you there.
Yeah, oh no, it's fabulous. And we're getting folks from outside of Hampton coming by water and by land to come there and have fun and have a hot dog and enjoy what's going on. There's commerce right there on that creek. It's fun to watch the barges coming and going and the recreational boating that's going on there. Hampton has so much to offer, and folks are finding us.
Yes.
And those kinds of places help us tell our story outside of the city. So it's very exciting. Yes, and those same folks with the Dead Rise in Fort Monroe.
Yes.
We're very excited about the opportunities at Fort Monroe. It's a unique place with a wonderful history and beautiful architecture and a gorgeous geographical setting. What more could you ask for in a city?
There is no better place to watch the sunset than the
No.
Dead Rise porch. You have to wait in line is the only problem,
That's the
at
problem.
least during the season. But
Yes, but I'm not arguing with success. That's just great. We're
Okay,
excited.
so I'm going to ask you for your elevator speech now. And I know they bring you out. I know the staff does a good bit of the groundwork, but when it comes to cementing a big deal or working, they bring the board, they bring every resource they
Yes.
can. What is your pitch about why a business should choose Hampton?
Well, I think the most important thing about Hampton is our people. So I think that the first thing I always want to say is this is a place full of fantastic people. We're a diverse, vibrant community with lots of folks with all kinds of skills. We have all kinds of an educated population that we can bring. And we're just a real place full of great people. That's the first thing. And the next thing is our geography. Where we are is not only beautiful, which is a great incentive to show people, and I always like to show, especially folks from out of town, how beautiful Hampton is from the water, because lots of people are just driving down Mercury Boulevard and they haven't had the opportunity to see us from the seashore.
Right.
And so both the geography of the beauty of the geography of the place, and also the central location that we have. So in terms of where we are with interstate access, harbor access, rail access, we have a fantastic location right here in the center of Hampton Roads, in the center of the Mid-Atlantic. So I think that that is also a unique factor that we have. And we have a very willing economic development department. So we've got smart people doing good things, open for business, and I think with our wonderful resources in our people, our beautiful geography, and our central location, why wouldn't you choose Hampton?
Exactly. I can't add anything to that. So I think we should close on that note unless you have anything to add.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Thank
it's been
you.
a great pleasure.
And thank you for your service as well, because you don't get paid much for those meetings, and you do work, as you said, somewhere in the neighborhood of up to 20 hours a week,
There can
basically
be a
as
lot
a
of time.
volunteer for our city. And I think we
a
all
blessing.
appreciate what you and the other folks on those boards and commissions do.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you understand economic development and vibrancy in Hampton, what we're doing, how we're doing it, and feel free to add your input to this conversation. Thanks for watching.